Man.
I'm trying. There we go. All right, now we're going. Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody, to another fantastic Monday away from football, talking about Bourbon.
Well, and also let's
And
not
baseball.
forget the Milwaukee Brewers with an opportunity for the World Series for the first time since 1982. So
Who's counting?
lots of sacrifice tonight, fellas. Lots of sacrifice.
I paid attention to none of that, so I'm still just going to be focused on bourbon and the three-tier system.
And the incredible beard. My God, Kenny.
It's glorious.
I was
So lush.
at some point Ryan was having all the fun, so I had to step in and just see how good my beard. I'll be honest though, it's starting to grow on me. It is starting to I'm kind of enjoying it, but I have trimmed everywhere except for my mustache. The mustache is the only thing that has not been trimmed the entire time. So
that's your strong. That's your mantelpiece, right?
It's like a fuzzy caterpillar right now, and I'm kind of
what does Lauren think about it? Does she like the whole setup you got going on there?
Well, she asked for a divorce, and I said, "Well, hold on, let me just try a beard first, and we'll see if that'll be that'll fix things."
That'd be a lot cheaper for us.
No, I'm just kidding. It didn't happen, but
Ryan's actually nervous about that. Did you see his face there, Brian?
I had three more whiskers turn gray.
Yeah,
Turned
Cecil took that for real. Like I've noticed something about Ryan over the years. Like, man, he's really intuitive about things going on. So if he picks something up like that from you, Kenny, everything okay?
I think everything's okay.
I think the best time to talk about this is when Lauren's going to be listening back to it, seeing like, "Hold on, our marriage is great. Why are they acting like he just grew a beard out?"
She said she was ready for a new husband, and I was like, let's just try the beard first, and we'll start there.
Give you some options, yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
And do just stash for about a month and see what you think about that, and then
just buy a new handbag, Kenny. That's all. That's our love life.
I am honestly looking forward to the point where I can shave it and just keep the mustache and figure out how long can I keep that rocking. I'm not going to do Ryan. I won't bring back the handlebars because
you've done that. You've done it.
Well, at some point, then I'll get confused for being a bartender here. So I don't want to be doing that.
I don't think so. Not anymore. The handlebars are in a different genre, Kenny. They're no longer just behind the bar. They're I think
they're also washing the dishes. Are
in the wild? In the wild.
I was going to say what group is now taking the handlebars mustache over, or like the twisted up with beeswax?
It's the barbers. The barbers. Yeah.
The painters.
Yeah, and the painters, yes, the barbers and the painters,
I see,
and those who like to get beat up in alleys.
Chalk it down. Hopefully not when I'm leaving the downtown studio tonight.
I think we should just have Kenny's beard all night instead
of
3-tier.
That's a solid topic right there. Does it make bourbon taste better, Kenny?
You need 3 tiers of
3 tiers of beard.
Hey,
well,
a beard does save, like when you spill a little bourbon, it like catches in the beard. It doesn't ever get to your shirt. So there is that one positive from the beard.
I also
3 tiers is what I think Lauren shed when she saw the beard growing out.
Is that what it is? I like it. Yeah, but I have noticed though when I am nosing a bourbon that I do have a built-in filter now. And so it has to go right through the mustache and my upper lip to be able to. So it takes out a lot of the bullshit.
Oh, Jordan, Blake, and Brian are like, we have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, look at Ryan! Look how he set it up.
Yeah,
beards at top.
Beards versus no beards. Here we go. That's the debate now for tonight. I like it.
Yeah,
I feel offended since I can't grow a beard. It just still grows in as a goatee, and like nothing else, not so much here, just nothing else grows in. So maybe once I turn 50, I'll be able to then.
I mean, you still look 40, like a baby though. You still have the baby face. So
I'll take it for now. Take it.
I don't know how Kenny and Blake had such genetic diversity being brothers.
We're fraternal twins. We're not identical twins.
Yeah, here it is. All right, boys, ready to get at it?
Let's do it.
Here we go. Hey, everybody, welcome back. It is another fresh, brand new episode of Bourbon Pursuit, the official podcast of Bourbon. I'm Kenny Coleman.
Ryan Cecil here.
Fred Minnick.
And we are all three rocking beards tonight in the beard versus no beard matchup as we start talking about distributors tonight. It's going to be a hot topic as we kind of dive into it. But before we get into it, let's go ahead and introduce the rest of our panel, starting with my bottom left over here, Mr. Sippin' Corn himself.
Hey guys, this is a good one. Appreciate the beards versus non-beard setup there. Brian, you know me, Sippin' Corn, Bourbon Justice, all that. Thanks, guys.
Got it. And Blake.
Yeah, Blake from Sealbox. Good to be here with good audio and excited for this roundtable. As we say every week, it should be a good one.
It should be. No promises. We'll see. We'll see who can keep their razors away from our face to make sure that we can keep our beards another day. But we'll see what happens. And Jordan.
Hey guys, this is Jordan from Breaking Bourbon. Looking forward to a good conversation.
Yep. All right. Well, anybody that missed the warm up to this show tonight, we were all talking about how much we love our beards and our facial hair, and the guys that are not a part of Bourbon Pursuit they all shave their chest, so it's a completely different. It's a one-on-one over here. But glad we're all here.
Not all they shave, Kenny. Let's be clear. Blake's
it's
talked about going to the waxing salon many a times.
It's not just for women. It's for everyone. Brazilian applies.
It doesn't even hurt him anymore. He's just so used to it right now. That's what it comes down to.
Blake using air.
There
all
you
over his
go.
body.
It doesn't even sting. It's just part of his natural remedy now. All right, so this is going to be a topic that I don't know if we've been punting it off forever, but it was just one of those things that as things have been going on, and we always start having these back end conversations, we say like back channel conversations between our group, and we just start talking about distributors, and we start talking about the 3-tier system, and obviously it seems to always be in the spotlight. I don't know, every week. You have either news of RNDC. We saw California just enacted DTC. There's going to be all kinds of things that happen in the 3-tier system, and good, bad, ugly, in between. But I don't think it would feel right if we didn't start this without some small little piece of history. And I'm going to probably put it over here to Fred, because if anybody that doesn't know, is that the reason why the 3-tier system exists today is because it is an artifact of prohibition.
Yeah. So basically, prohibition was created because as a country, we were drinking too much, and it got tied into the women's suffrage movement, and the women's Christian temperance union pursued basically ending the consumption of alcohol, because women's husbands were basically going to brothels all night, drinking, and then passing out in the mud and dying in the mud puddle, stuff like that. They were drinking bad alcohol, and we were drinking a lot back in the day, and we are not anywhere, no matter how much you drink, unless you are one of the types of alcoholics that you have the shakes all the time. There is no way you can touch an average man in 1906. Those guys drink a lot. So as a country, we were like, drinking is bad, right? So we enacted prohibition, and you see some of it happen. You see some similarities today, but today they're talking about we shouldn't drink for health reasons, but back then it was for moral and religious reasons. And whiskey would often get linked to being as a part of the devil. And there was beer and wine was splintered away from whiskey. Whiskey, spirits in general, took on the brunt of the hate for prohibition. Then prohibition happens. Of course, no one ever stops really drinking. You could go to the doctor in all but a handful of states like West Virginia and Indiana. Those were called bone dry states. You could go to these doctors and get a prescription for alcohol, and you'd also get a prescription for cocaine, heroin. It was a hell of a time to be sick.
I was like, wait a minute.
The good old days, as you like to call
yeah,
them.
I mean, you're sick in 1922. You're coming out of there with some cocaine and a bottle of Old Crow. Like, it's a good time.
Where's a DeLorean when you need one?
So basically, what happens is that no one ever stopped drinking. Instead of it kind of being handled by businesses, mobs were formed. Racketeering systems were set up, and distillers would end up finding themselves getting robbed. Their barrels would get robbed and what have you. And the entire prohibition history is really summed up in one person, and that is Al Capone. Al Capone is a very good summation of what happened. Pretty much a nobody. Prohibition happens. He rises the ranks. It becomes a prominent liquor dealer, and to be able to sell alcohol during that time, you have to kill a few people and so forth. And so when prohibition ends, when it's repealed on the votes finally come through December 5th, 1933, which we celebrate as Repeal Day. The federal government was basically one of the big things that was tied to the end of prohibition, was that we were teaching our citizens and children not to respect the Constitution and not respect state rights, which state rights is something that I think is used as an excuse a lot of times just to punt a very difficult conversation at the federal level. And so basically the federal government just said, okay, the states are going to manage the alcohol. And so at that point, the entire country, every state essentially became its own country. And so you would have like a federal, you basically created a 3-tier system. So if it was something that was made in the United States, that's your first tier. That's the supplier. If it's getting imported from another country, you could argue it's a 4-tier system, and that the importer is like the supplier to the United States. But that's a whole different thing. From there, it would have to go to a distributor, and the distributors were basically the argument for creating the distribution network and everything was because that was the way that we could prevent crime, and that was the way we could control people not drinking underage. So making sure that people of the right age would actually be consuming the alcohol and not someone who's like 12. And then it would the distributors in the states would then parcel it out to the people who are, taverns or liquor stores. It's far more complicated than that, but I try to get a little history there and a little bit of kind of like how it laid out. And that system has not changed at all. With a few tweaks here and there, it's not can't come up with the times like the wine business has or the beer business. It has relatively stayed the same for liquor in all 50 states. So that's kind of where we are.
There we go. That was quite the history lesson. Ryan, you have any clarity or any color you want to add to that?
I don't.
Okay, very good.
I think Fred nailed it.
I know you're just waiting to chime in there. But this is it really sets the stage as we start talking about this, because as Fred just alluded to at the very end, is that this is a system that has not changed, has not really budged, and ultimately has become a turf war in regards of owning the system, because nobody wants this to change if you're in that middle tier. Now, on opposite sides of that, you definitely see proponents and actions for change, and it's slowly happening. I remember that we have talked about this since the start of Bourbon Community Roundtables, where I remember that when Brian came on and talked about the Supreme Court case in Tennessee and about how that could have been the first domino that was going to tumble. And then all of a sudden we're going to open up interstate commerce, yet we still haven't really seen that kind of come to fruition. Brian, you want to kind of give a little bit of, context around that too?
Yeah. So what that case is, that was a total wine case out of Tennessee, and it was all about who could hold the license, because that's the thing here. The federal government controls the permits through the TTB, and then each state has, a lot of them will call it ABC, will issue licenses for each of those 3 tiers. And what we've maybe seen since then, certainly not any kind of walls falling down yet, but the biggest thing we've seen is the DTC, the direct to consumer shipping. And you had mentioned California passing a new law earlier this month, I think, that's supposed to go into effect in January. They're finding problems with that law already, so they're trying to fix it. But that's supposed to open up a little more direct to consumer shipping. Kentucky has a certain direct to consumer shipping, but you got to get other states to cooperate with it. So basically, Kentucky says if you let us ship to you, or the other way around, if we can ship to you, you got to be able to ship to us too. So, and then the other thing that has opened up is sales at gift shops is treated a little bit differently now. Used to have to literally go through a distributor to sell at a distillery gift shop, and that's changed a little bit now too. So it's small changes, but it's so embedded into the culture of revenue collection, I think, is the biggest thing. But it's also embedded into the culture of the producers and their trade groups. Basically, you get all of the important trade groups back the 3-tier system. And I'm not sure why that is. Maybe they just like what they know, but you get a lot of pushback from the big producers, and I think, as you were implying, especially the big middlemen, because all they kind of do is skim off the top before it comes to the retailers. So there's been some changes. I think there's a lot of positive movement on that, but we're still, as Fred said, stuck mostly in the same situation we've been in.
Except we can't get cocaine like it's 1906 again. Other than
other than morphine and the cocaine is harder to come by, but yeah, other than
well,
you gotta know,
unless you know a guy.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I mean, not to just piggyback on all that, but I think when you think about any industry that has really not changed since what was prohibition, 1915, 1912, something like that. Like, it is crazy to think that there's been no modernizing of what's going on in this world. It's completely different. And that's not to say like, oh, I'm not the one who's like, oh, let's abolish the 3-tier system completely. Like, the distributors play a very vital role both for suppliers and retailers, because if you're a retailer, you can't know every product out there. So it's great to have a good distributor who's presenting you new products. Same if you're a supplier, you've got the right distributor. I can't know every retailer that's going to carry a bottle. You want them on your side to be able to go into all these different stores, pitch your products, explain what it is. Having that sales team working for you as the distribution model is very important. But, they also didn't have a ton of craft distilleries, a ton of small brands, a ton of all these other things. They didn't have distributor consolidation back in prohibition. And that's what everybody's facing now. And I think that's where the real frustration comes in, is it just hasn't been updated for, one, how consumers are purchasing, two, what the market is currently. And then they weren't predicting that there would be, call it 3 to 5 companies controlling 80 to 85% of alcohol sales in the entire country. I don't think anybody saw that. And that's when you really start to see the problems come in, because if you're a small guy, and I mean, even if you're a big guy and you're in California and RNDC pulls out, you've got 60 days to find a new distributor who can then get you. Like, what are you just going to not service one of the largest states in the country? And so that's where I think a lot of the things we talk about behind the scenes of this needs to be fixed, this needs to be changed, that's when it really starts to come in, because there's just some places where you don't have another option and all the options are bad.
Yeah. Jordan, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, a few interesting points have come up. And I think the main thing is this is entrenched in both history, but it's also it's entrenched in historic consumer purchasing practices, and it's not modernized for the internet, right? So there was talk, as we talked so far, and I saw some comments in the chat, it works as a middleman for sales and for the smaller brands. And yeah, that's true. And that worked really well through the 80s and 90s. But, now that you can purchase things online, and now that D2C is huge for direct to consumers, it's not really necessary. All you really need is just a warehouse and distribution system to ship it out of, whether it's your shipping center in your small craft distillery, or whether you use a third party just to ship it for you. More so, consumers really have no idea what's going on, right? We know about it. Everyone listening to this, everyone both talking on Bourbon Community Roundtable, everyone listening in on Bourbon Community Roundtable, we very much know about the 3-tier system. But on average, we get at least one email a day from consumers who will read one of our reviews and say, hey, I love your products. I can't find them. Why can't I find your products anywhere? Because they think we're the brand instead of Breaking Bourbon. But they never say, like, I can't, that your distributor is not distributing your products. They always blame the brands. They have no idea what's going on. In their mind, it goes brand, store, them, right? That's it. No one really knows about the 3-tier system. So consumers aren't in anger about it and really demanding change because they don't even know it exists. Like, the amount of consumers, you walked up into a liquor store and said, excuse me, do you know about the 3-tier system and how it works? They would look at you with this, WTF look on their face going, is this guy on crack? Like, did he just visit his doctor? Did he get an old school prescription? What's going on? So, the incentive for consumers to demand change isn't there, which would drive a lot. And I think Brian made the point, it's not only a revenue. What did you say, Brian? It's not only a revenue generator, but it just generates profits for a huge conglomerate of folks that just don't want to give up their slice of the pie, right? And now they're able to lobby really well without consumers even knowing they're doing it.
So I will say that the entire reason why we are really approaching this episode and why we want to tackle it so strongly today, it is I feel like when the industry was doing well, man, the distributors were great. They had cocktail universities, they had sales reps, they were pushing people to carry products. I mean, they were doing a lot of stuff, and they were bringing in people to educate bartenders around their respective community. I feel like when the industry is doing well, they do their job great. But what I have been hearing the last 6 to 8 months is they're not paying their bills. They're no longer they're not paying their bills to the suppliers, or they're putting off bills to suppliers for as long as they can, up to 180 days. Some of them, smaller ones, go out of business very quickly. And those who are still in the game have essentially become just delivery people. So they're no longer out there on the ground pushing product. And so the industry is bound by the system that we have created and has worked for the most part. But now that you add, like, if you are a small distiller and you want to get your product in some random state and you have to rely on a distributor to get it out there for you, would you rather not be able to, like, buy a few Google ads and then take your chances of shipping directly to a consumer there? That's kind of where this stemmed from for me, and why I've become pretty passionate about it, is when I found out, like, all these small distillers who cannot afford to wait 180 days for $80,000. And all the rationale of why distributors are important. I hear you, man. I think the jobs are important. They absolutely have salespeople. But if you are not taking the stuff outside of a warehouse, if you're not going out on the streets for the brand that you have a contract with, then what are you doing for them? What are you doing? Because there's distilleries or NDPs or blenders, they're going to go out of business because they can't get their products out of a warehouse, and those very distributors are not paying their bills on time. That's the problem, in my opinion.
Well, let's break that down a little bit, because there's I feel like,
how much time do you got?
I feel like we have some war stories to tell between Ryan and I, because we've definitely been in not only the passenger seat, we've been the driver and been the whole car as kind of going through here. Yeah, I mean, it's happening today. I mean, this is something where thankfully I try to keep myself out of QuickBooks, but that's where Ryan loves to live. And so I'll pop in there and I'll be like, why is this distributor 45 days late on a net 30 payment? And then, we'll sit there and email, and then it becomes crickets. Still dealing with that from another distributor currently. And it's like, I don't get it. And there's, what are you going to do? Right. I mean, we're sitting here at a very disadvantaged spot. The only thing you can do is go and, hire Brian over here to write a nasty gram. And then we got to pay him to get our money back. And so we still lose money at the end of the day, because, that's just kind of the way things work. Money aside, I think one of the most stressful, difficult things that we deal with is that and by the way, it's not every distributor, so I'm putting all under an umbrella, but it does have its pockets where you choose a distributor. It is kind of like choosing another wife, right? I mean, it's a nurturing relationship that you have to keep going. You have to keep them happy. There's a lot of communication that has to happen. If you're not communicating,
like my beard.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about my beard for 10 minutes. But if you're not doing that, then obviously, like, you lose a lot of the mind share. But the thing is like, if you go and you choose a distributor, Well, their goal is to basically be your sales force. Like that's why you choose a distributor. The hard part that we're definitely seeing nowadays is that even though we choose them as a distributor, well, they're not actually going out and do anything beyond an initial push. And when an initial push is mean that as soon as you go on, you get brought on, you arm the sales team up with as much education and knowledge, and then in the span of a month, they go and they try to hit it as hard as they can. And then guess what happens the next month? They're on to the next product, right? And so you get put to the wayside and they're not doing anything for you until guess what? Until you go back and you travel and you go and you talk to their teams again. And then maybe they'll do something for you. But I think this was probably the epitome of what this boils down to is I'm going to steal it out of Ryan because this is actually a interaction that he had is, we have these things called ride withs when you go and work with a distributor and you actually sit in a car with a distributor rep and they take you around to 5 or 6 stores and you go try to pitch your goods and you try to get a case placement, right? And Ryan gets in the car with him and goes, hey, I'm going to take you to the 5 best bourbon accounts that I have. And Ryan's like, why are we not in these stores already? Like, this should have been something that you would have been doing over a year. Like, why does it take me having to travel down here for you to get off your ass and actually do something? And I think that's probably the most stressful thing. I just got back from a trip, right? It was not the most fruitful trip for a distributor with me, right? When I spend $2,000 on flight, hotels, food, everything like that I had to make it all happen, and I get like 4 case placements, 6 case placements, like we're losing money. Like it's not a good trip when something like that happens. So there is a disadvantage to being in that position because you don't have any other opportunity. It'd be different if all of a sudden, like, and that I think, we can talk about this from, all different angles, but I mean, that's just the part and the nature of the business is that when you're working with a distributor, you don't even get 5% of their mind share. If you're lucky, you might get half a percentage that they still know and know exactly what's happening. I mean, every single time we talk to distributors, and it could be once every year and a half or 2 years, there's a fresh new group of people and they've never heard your product before. And so you're coming in and you're going, oh, wait, you've been around for a year and you didn't even know you carried us? Like, that's the problem.
Yeah, I can, and we have some great distributors and Jordan said it great. Most consumers have no idea that this is what goes on. But 2, there's been, like, especially over the last 7 to 10 years, there's been so much consolidation with any business. It's not just distributors, it's every industry. There's consolidation. And then you're one of 200 brands they carry. And, I'm happy, to go to a market. And as Kenny said, he took me to his 5 best bourbon accounts. I'm like, well, why haven't you presented this? And that's totally fine. But you know how much, like, I went and sold those accounts, how much discount we got on those? Because I sold them 0, So you're still paying the full distribution rate. And distributors are an important part of this system. Like, there is no way that any brand, Kenny and I included, can, like, ship product to every single account across the 9 or 10 markets that there are. But when you need them to sell and to deliver products, most of these distributors, they have so many brands that they just be kind of in like, well, we're not going to sell it anymore. You need to have your own salespeople, and you're going to create the orders, and then we're going to stock the shelves. But it's even got to the point where, because we have ambassadors and this and that, they will create the sales and create this, and they can't even deliver product. We'll set up tastings, this and that for, distributors that we're like, we have a tasting scheduled. They're going to be here this day. Can you make sure that they have products there? And they won't even deliver on that. And that's where the problem lies, is that's like, okay, we're reliant on this middle tier to build our brand, but they can't even deliver, and there's no repercussions for that. And that's and it's not just us, it's all brands, and that with RNDC and everybody consolidating, it's just an issue across the board. And if you don't have the money to sit there and it's not necessarily pay to play, but if you can't give incentives and this and that to like to push these reps to go sell your brand, get you placements, you're just going to kind of die. And that's the unfortunate part. And there's a lot of great small craft producers that just can't afford to do this. You know, as Brian had mentioned, Blake, Fred, and about how there's been awesome like gift shop, you know, laws that can allow you to sell direct to consumer. I call it own premise, having your own retail, this and that. Like, it's crazy as a brand like ours, like almost 55% of our sales are what I call direct consumer, because we're selling either at our gift shop or, you know, through a DTC channel like Sealbox. And that's kind of absurd when you have to play in this 3-tier system. Like, most of our sales should not be direct to consumer. It should be in the markets that we are. And customers will say, well, why aren't you in this market, this and that? And you're like, we don't have the resources to go launch another market, to go entertain a new distributor, to incentivize the reps, this and that. It's like, it takes a heavy lift of 6 months to a year of resources to where we can actually go and get product on the shelf. And two, stores, and granted, I understand there's so many brands being pitched to them, this and that, and they're like, why would I take on another brand that I'm just going to sit on my shelf and it's just going to sit there? And so it's a weird situation that I don't know the answer, but I do know the answer. It's like, okay, let's let DTC more accessibility to brands to reach consumers reach the consumers that want you, versus doing this spray and pray model where you go give it to the distributor, they put it as many placements that they can, and you pray that somebody shows up and buys them from you.
So one of the things that is the most powerful in this entire conversation is getting attention. It's been brought up a lot in the chat, and thank you everyone in the chat chiming in for tuning in live. These are incredible active comments. This is probably our best active chat ever. And Jordan, I feel like you and I, we have the, when we do reviews, whether it's video or online, I feel like we have the ability to drop links and tell people where they can buy stuff. What do you all do at Breaking Bourbon? Do you try to like do DTC stuff? Do you link out to Sealbox because Blake's giving you a kickback? What's going on there with Breaking?
No kickback from Sealbox. We do have one retailer.
Is the biggest kickback, and
we do have one retailer on the site that will do links. We're actually starting to work with Blake from Sealbox and a few others, and our goal is not so much to we don't get kickbacks from anyone. Our goal is to just, here's the links where you can buy them. They may or may not ship to your state. It may or may not be the price you like, but we will, we'll show you where to go to do that. And we'll hear a lot from consumers too. Well, the site's selling, it's not at MSRP. And it's like, again, we can't control any of that, right?
Yeah.
But we are showing you where you can get it. And there's going to be varying prices, just like if you want to go buy a new gas grill, you're going to have to shop online and look at various stuff. All we're doing is trying to provide you a conduit and save you a Google search. But at the end of the day, for consumers, it's the Wild West. And some consumers don't get how it works, especially with MSRP, or they think it's a joke. And it's like, well, it is what it is. It's still an allocated product. Others feel that they are entitled to, we'll get a lot of emails too. I'm sure you do too, Fred. Hey, this, why can't I buy this product for less than $500? This is absurd. Why are you guys even showing that it's, an MSRP of $80? Well, because that's what the MSRP is. Sorry guys, all we're doing is providing information in an honest review format, and then it's up to you to decide if you want to spend the money or not. So, we do try and provide that conduit, Fred. I think you do too. But at the end of the day, it's still a crapshoot for consumers. And if they are doing stores and they are selling it, they have the right to sell whatever price they want. Just like if you walk into your local liquor store and there's a Pappy 23 behind the case for $5,000.
Yeah, liquor stores are the kind of like they are the the one part of the tier we haven't really talked about yet. But I have I've met with quite a few liquor store owners and buyers. A lot of them judge for me on the Ascot Awards, and the things that they are coming to me with that the suppliers are doing. And I'm not talking about like Kenny and them, that you have to do a lot to get their attention to begin with, as if you're a major retailer. But they're saying that suppliers are trying to like increase their prices, and they're trying to hold the line for like Jack Daniels, Jim Beam, Maker's Mark, Elijah Craig, Evan Williams, Four Roses Yellow Label. They're trying to hold the line of like under $40 on all of these products. And they are getting so much pushback from the suppliers about increasing their prices. And then the suppliers are then turning around working with state governments to try and get direct to consumer. There's probably not a better lobbyist group out there than the Kentucky Distillers Association for working on this very particular issue. 10 years ago, they couldn't ship anywhere. I mean, now if you're a brand in Kentucky, you can ship to a lot of places because of the efforts that they have put forth. So I think some of this that's going on, if I'm a conspiracy theorist, which because of Jared Allen and my new show, I'm slowly becoming one, because he's a big time conspiracy theorist. He is, I think a lot of these larger companies are testing and pushing to see what they can break within the 3-tier system. Really think that's happening right now.
I mean, honestly, I don't think that's even conspiracy. I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't be shocked if that was kind of the playbook. And I think a lot of what we've talked about, it's all good business, bad business practices, but the biggest rub is just that it is forced on us because it is still the 3-tier system. I was in New York and New Jersey this past week, and you walk in with those reps, and store owners look at them like family members, and they love them, and they're happy to talk and this and that. And it's like, yeah, that's when it goes really well. But then there's been other occasions when in different states, and it's like, you can't get a call back. The rep just doesn't care about the brand. And I think what we forget as bourbon enthusiasts is so much of this is driven on like the handles of Tito's, the Maker's Mark handles being under $25. I mean, I've talked to store owners who they've said if they're like 25 cents over whatever somebody else has specific handles on, they'll just see sales plummet. And that becomes a very tough world that they're having to be up against. And then you throw in the craft side. It's like, well, I know I'm not Jack Daniels that is $27 for a handle. Let me tell you about my $100 bottle that was blended from 3 different distilleries and finished in toasted French oak and maple. It just blows their mind. It's way too much to have to try to figure out. And they're business people too. It's like, hey, if I can go sell 1,000 cases a month of some major distillery's whiskey, why would I spend my time selling 2 cases a month of Sealbox? Like, I get that trade-off. It's fair. It just all comes back to the fact that it's forced. And I will say on the payment side as well, as a retailer, if we don't pay our bills by the 16th of every month, we are cut off. We are cash only. Other distributors will not talk to us. They won't sell to us. We're on the list. It's happened a few times on accident, I'll be honest. And it's like, hold on, what do you mean we're on the list? And we've got to make sure the wire goes out that day, get off the list. If that happens from a supplier side, there is no protection from that level. And I know one thing, I didn't know if it's going to come or not, but Texas has actually implemented that into their new law or system. And I feel like it's like, hey, if we're going to force all suppliers and retailers and distributors into this system, there has to be protections on all sides. And right now it's pretty unbalanced. And I'm sure distributors have You know, we probably should have had somebody on to give their side of a lot of this, but I feel like for the most part, we're on our distributor side. Like I think the ones we work with do a great job. I know, especially on the retail side, we have ones that do a better job than others. But we're all battling a tough system and kind of slowing down economic times on a lot of bourbon and craft whiskey side. And we're also forced into it. It's like going to a family reunion and saying you have to have fun because these are your family members and we're not going to any other party. Like you're not going to a friend's birthday party, you're going to this family reunion and you better have fun. And that's what I feel like we're stuck in right now.
Well, it's like any other product. You could, the first step of proving your product is DTC. Like you can create a t-shirt, a clean your earwax, whatever. You can put it online and sell it DTC, no problem. That's where you prove it. And then from there, you might have, your own retail shops. And then from there, you hit department stores or Walgreens or whatever. Whereas in this system, you're kind of forced to be like, well, I have this product. I got to go put it into a system that only appeals to brands that already have brand recognition. And and that's tough because you, as a new product, you don't have brand recognition. You're going on a shelf that's crowded, competitive, this and that. Whereas you don't have an outlet to build your brand. You got to go play this game where it's very competitive. You got to pay to play, and not necessarily like pay to play. Like you're not. But you have to do this model that's not necessarily conducive to a small brand, whereas any other product in the American economy can go prove itself and create sales with direct to consumer right out the gate and prove that model. You watch Shark Tank or anything, they're like, okay, where's your sales coming from? And they're like, we're doing Amazon or direct to consumer, and we've done $2 million out there. And then the next step is like, all right, we're going to our own brick and mortars, and then we're going to department stores. You can't do that in the alcohol space, and that's where it's uncompetitive.
Well, it's funny you say that, Ryan, tying back what you just said and a point that Blake said, when you're dealing with store owners who are used to big brands, they have hundreds of craft products that they don't know how to differentiate anyone. I'll never forget a talk that I was having with Mike from Penelope a few years back. This is before they sold to MGP. And just ask him about his daily routine and things like that. And he said, every day I take time to call 5 to 15 store owners that have bought our product in the past. Just introduce myself, ask them if they have any questions, and just thank them for buying our product. And he said 9 times out of 10, people would say, you are the first brand that has ever actually picked up the phone and called me and had a conversation and thanked me. And he said the repeat business from those stores that then put in more orders through their distributors was off the charts. But he put in the work. That's a grind, working a full day and then trying to find time to have conversations with 5 to 15 folks. But that's what it took. He couldn't fly out to every single store, but he made sure he picked up the phone and called folks every single time and built that relationship. And maybe it just sold a case here and there. But that was basically his way of putting his distributor off to the side and building that direct connection with the store. They still had to order through the distributor. But I'll never forget that because I was like, boy, that's super smart. And more brands really should be taking notice and more brands should be doing that.
Yeah, but that doesn't work unless people are buying it, because if they get stuck with those bottles,
If
they
they
get stuck
sit,
with them,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
So
the same. Oh, go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
What? No, that's all right. So I was trying my damnedest to find a way to be the distributor guy voice for this edition of the Roundtable. And I actually did some research, and I found white papers from all the trade groups and the distributors, all these folks. The number one justification they have, and plug it into AI, and you're going to get the same thing. Plug in something about support for.
Can I guess?
Three-tier
Can I
system.
guess?
Tell me.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
My guess is the number one thing is it prevents people from under 21 drinking alcohol.
Public
That's
health.
part of it. That's part of it.
I wasn't number one. Dang.
The timing.
I feel like it's gonna be like a
so
Family Feud. That was number 3. Who's got the next guess over here?
The number one reason is what you guys are talking about, and it's the opposite of what you're talking about. They're saying it promotes competition, and it helps the small guys get out into distribution. And everyone is saying this. All the white papers have this, and I'm not hearing it from you guys. And I wanted to come in and be the clown who's spouting off facts against what I knew I was going to hear, what the real world experience is from you guys. But everyone in their white papers is saying this supports competition. It helps the small guys get into stores. And it's not what your experience is. So are they
I'm not
selling
gonna
us a
disagree
false
with
bill of
that.
goods
Yeah, I
here?
was gonna say, I don't disagree with that to an extent. Like, I would not be in the places I am without our distributors, but there's there's good ones, and then there's ones that don't. Like, I'm not going to be in New York or New Jersey or Illinois or Florida like every week. Like, I can't do that. So it's great to have people like one of our reps is in the chats now, and like Hunter is out there selling our brand, selling our story, and like that's how it should work.
Well, I mean, he wasn't
when it
going to be
doesn't
if you didn't
happen
say
like
his
that.
name there, though.
Yeah, I mean, and if there's not a 50 case deal put in tomorrow, we're but like that is correct to an extent. But the problem is, I mean, talk about a state like Georgia where I don't know why divorce has come up so much, but you can get a divorce in probably a week. You can't leave your distributor no matter what. Like, you're franchised in, like, you can't, I don't even know if you can buy your way out of those distribution agreements. And so if you got one who's not performing or something else, like, you're stuck. They don't care about you. And it is a numbers game for them. Like, I know I gave the example, but do they want to sell 1,000 cases a week of a product, or somebody who's harder to move, and then you're stuck in that relationship with them? So it is like in any other business, that's how distribution works. Like, they get people into stores or restaurants or whatever it is, but the fact that we're stuck with them, and that's not the real world experience the majority of the time, is, I think, where it really comes back.
I think there's probably two key words that were left off of all the research that you saw that they probably should include in the white paper, Brian, and that's in theory, right? In theory, in theory, it does that. In practicality or in practice,
it doesn't work when you have folks as big as our NDC. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, in theory, in reality, no.
But yeah, too, distributors, even stores, with how much they brought on during the pandemic and this and that, like they're like, we can't take on new brands, this and that. And so they're denying brands like the opportunity to come to like a state or to be on stores. And so I've been to a store and it's like, they have tons of products and they're like, find a place on the shelf where I can put you. And, and you're like, fair enough, and it's like, as a brand, what do? You can't be like, well, take that one off and put ours on. And,
I've done that. I've literally bought a bottle off the shelf.
You just got to buy the bottle
to take another brand off. I have bought another bottle off the shelf to take another brand off so we could put ours in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it exists.
And that's the thing. It's like you're at the mercy of like not only the store, but also the distributor having the ability or capacity to even like go represent you as a brand. And so that's become even more of an issue. And thankfully it hasn't been, but we've had some states where we're like, we'd love to be in the state. We've had, we can show the data, like we have so many listeners and this and that and this and that. And they're like, well, we're just not taking on any new suppliers at this time. And you're like, well, what do you do? That sucks.
And here is the problem with all of it. Okay, the business model can stay. There is a place for distributors. I may have came out and sounded like anti-distributor. I'm not. What I am against is that it is forced upon you, and it's not just the distributors blocking you to sell directly to a consumer in Oklahoma or Tennessee or Rhode Island or Idaho. It's the retailers there, or it's the government control system there. These places want to capture their own VIG. They want their own tax revenue. They want their own profits. And they also want the first batch of Pappy. And they're the first to complain about it when they don't get Blanton's. I mean, I just think that there's got to be a relaxation of it in today's market of what we allow, or we're going to, because there are brands like, a small brand like 291 in Colorado that has fans out there, but they sure in the shit don't got distribution. But they got 5 fans in New York that will buy 60 bottles. And man, that could go a long way for any small company. And it's just the market, where we are today in society, where everything is at our fingertips at all times. I highly encourage any distributor executive watching this, if you want your VIG, find a way to make it work. You had it with Drizzly, you had a working model, and you just kind of like shuttered it. It went away. There hasn't been anything close to that since. And it just, you had a model. There was something there. And now we got the cease and desist letters coming again from the attorney generals, blocking people in the good state of Arkansas, Kentucky, Tennessee from getting bottles that they want. And instead of being able to support an American-owned company, they're finding themselves going to the liquor store and buying something else. It bothers me, man. It really bothers me.
Brian, aside from the competition, distribution, what other aspects pop up? I mean, I know public health is always a big one.
But yeah, public health, and they probably only give that just some lip service. But the number one thing on most of these searches was that it prevents the tied house problem, which Fred can speak on that probably better than any of us. But what happened back in the day is the producers would basically sponsor or own the bars, and you could only get a certain type of beer there. You could only get a certain type of whiskey there. And that would totally block out the smaller producers. So it's kind of related to it's the other side of the coin of getting the small guys out there, is that they're preventing the big, evil, huge producers from owning everything every step of the way. That's kind of the number one reason that I saw.
And that's where the Kentucky Distillers Association has done such a great job in the last few years, is they've said, we'll create tasting rooms. We'll create, bars and restaurants at the distilleries. And they found a way around it, and that it's people come here, right? What's interesting is there are a few restaurant owners that have created their own brands, right? And Jason Bronner, Bourbon's Bistro is one with Buzzard's Roost, the really popular retail outlet, Justin's House of Bourbon. They've got a share of a brand, and the law, as I've understood it here in Kentucky, is that you can't own more than 10% of the brand if you have an active license. And Blake, I don't know what it's like for you, like, because you have a retail situation and a brand. What's the law as it pertains to you on the tied house thing?
Yeah, we're just IP, so we don't even own the brand. It's so like it all flows through our bottler. Our licensing of IP is how it has to work here.
Okay.
There you go. Nice.
Yeah. Which, there's always fun ways to do that. But
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Trump vodka.
What's amazing to me is, and I
It's
don't
coming
even know
back.
if I don't even know if it's a their distribution's part of the problem, but retailers too. It's like I've never seen an industry that like puts zero effort into selling their own inventory. And so like it's like you and we have great accounts that do amazing jobs, and those accounts are incredible. But there are accounts that just don't that just they don't care. They want the market to sell what it sells. And like any other retail outlet I've ever been to, it's like, oh, you have a new product, this and that. It's like, how can we promote it? Sealbox. You are the only online retailer that will actually like go through the work of taking photos, telling tasting notes, telling the story of like a product. No retailer does that in the entire industry like you all do. And
I
it
thought you were
blows my mind.
suggesting we send more emails a week. Is that what you?
Yes, please spam
I
me
mean, we
more.
could get to like 10 to 12.
Yeah, I was like, here's my fourth one today. Yeah, the case deal, it's back.
But it's amazing to me that even retailers just like they don't want to get behind a product. They're just like they put it on a shelf, and if it sells, it sells. They don't care if it tastes good or this or that. They just do whatever the market wants. And it's like no, if you have a product and inventory that you're passionate about and you think like go sell it, to consumers. And 9 times out of 10, they don't. They're just like, oh, we got Blanton's or we got Buffalo Trace, this and that. That's they just want to flow through the product without any effort. And I've never seen any other industry that's like that. I can go to a boutique with my wife and she'll shop around and they'll have this new jeans or new shirt and they'll tell a story about it, and it's just a fascinating world that like where that third tier just doesn't really care about individual products. They just want to sell what sells. Like they just want to be laissez-faire about it.
Or they push things where they get a larger percentage of the sale.
100%. Yes.
Yeah.
Or they push it to get allocations to other products.
Yeah. So they have a lot of the retailers, will be honest with you, like, hey, we're pushing Wheatley vodka because we need a case of Blanton's. Or they'll say like, hey, we're pushing our private stock product because, we get 30% off of it versus like 2% or 5% or whatever the margins are. So like, retailers have a tendency to do what's in their best interest, like a lot of businesses, but the consumer doesn't know that, right? It's just kind of like,
for example, we spent almost $200,000 on in-store tastings. Tell me another product that will go into a retail account like, well, here's you can't even taste jeans or whatever. Here's free jeans to go try them before you can buy them. It's unbelievable,
About paddle boards, Ryan. You think you can try paddle boards? Can
or
you taste those?
Or the beard industry. They'll have all sorts of like beard oil people there at the American Beard Company or
only
whatever.
us top 30 need beard oil, but
Call her Whiskers crew over here.
Not a fan of beard oil, by the way. Not a fan.
I think the like the cosmetic industry would actually be a good comparison of that, where I think they do a lot of like in-store tastings. I don't know from the publications I read, but even at that, like, I don't, what's a big like Sephora, you go there and there's somebody explaining to you stuff like, oh, you should do this or that or whatever it is.
yeah,
And
but
it
that's
is always
their own
refreshing.
in-house staff. It's
Yeah,
not
I was
the
good.
brand
Yeah.
staff doing that.
I was gonna say it is refreshing whenever you go to a store and you're presenting product to them and they're like, "Oh, I've got this customer. They're gonna love this. Oh, it's cash strength and high proof. I've got these other customers. They're gonna love it." It's like, yeah, you're doing a great job as a retailer. You know your customers. You know how to sell the product, but that's, I mean, somebody put it in the chat where it's liquor stores basically run as like convenience stores a lot of times, and that is where we are with a lot of stores. Now you've got great whiskey stores out there still with knowledgeable staff, but I think that's fewer and far between usually.
When you guys are trying to do like Costco in-store tasting, Ryan, except instead of going to one store with a ton of people and a ton of high like revenue consumers, you're trying to go to hundreds of stores throughout America, which is not as fruitful as going into like a Costco. So yeah, it's tough. Like it's super tough. I was just at a liquor store the other day and they were sampling High West, and I was like, how many bottles this actually moves? Probably not that many.
Yeah, but it's so funny. It's like, you know, the industry that we work in, and every distributor will tell you, you got to do tastings. You got to do them. That's what's going to get it. That's what's going to help build the brand. And I think that those last three words I just said right there are probably one of the most parts of we have the frustrations we do with the 3-tier system is that, you know, going back to even what Brian said of, you know, promoting competition. But one of the things that distributors always tell you is we build brands. The reality is that does not happen. It is up to you as the brand owner to build the brand and get your name out there. And it is slowly becoming to the point. And by the way, I say this as an umbrella, but there are some other great ones out there. But I mean, it's slowly to the point that it's like, you know, unless you're the one out there promoting it, selling it, marketing it, and essentially doing their job for them, where you're going into accounts, selling it for them on their behalf, and they're still collecting their commission check. That's just the way it is right now. And we don't have any other options because of what the system has forced us to do. With that, let's go ahead and let's wrap this up. There was actually a great question in the chat that said, hey, there's been a lot of questions in the chat. Can we do another roundtable where all you do is answer the questions from the chat? I'm like, that's a fantastic idea. So I've got a bunch of these starred, and we will potentially, I think, maybe just do that for the next roundtable, unless there's some other massive news that comes out. But
like, will it be the chat we just had, or the one we will be when we're live?
We'll take some from both. So we'll kind of put out a call for questions and see if there's any other ones that we want to ask or have people do, and we'll sift through, find some good ones, but we'll also go and take some of the ones that I started and favorited here and kind of talk about that as well, because there was definitely some good ones, especially if I want to give a shout out to Savannah, who's been commenting a lot over on Instagram. And one of her questions was, do you think this is a big reason why big suppliers are now going to smaller distributors, because even they felt like they weren't getting the attention they deserve? And you know what happens when they go to a smaller distributor? Then that means the other smaller guys at the smaller distributor.
That was purely because they get a better percentage back, and they still move the same amount of product, but instead of it being like 15%, it's, you know, they now they only take 10 or something. But yeah.
Well, they'll do that, and then
I'm looking for a 15% distributor.
Distributor who will do just
20,
as much work as
30,
the ones that want to take 30% from us. Exactly.
Yes.
All right, well, let's go ahead and let's wrap it up, because this was fun. I think that this is hopefully anybody that is, whether you're new to the podcast, whether you're new to the industry, whether you're just new to bourbon and you didn't know all the ins and outs and everything in between, hopefully this shed a little bit of light to know that when somebody goes, why can't I find this product in my state? And it's not because maybe there are in your state. Maybe it's just because the distributor rep hasn't pitched your local store, or maybe the local store has no idea, or maybe the rep doesn't know that he even carries your product. And so we always say this at the end of the day: if there is a product that you do want, the only thing you can do is ask your store to bring it in, and the store will then contact their distributor. And that's how the chain reaction works, is that it all has to come from the consumer side. It pretty much all starts at demand. So you're the ones that really hold the power at the end of the day. But let's go ahead and let's close this out. And Brian, we'll start out with you, buddy.
Yeah, that's a great point about the demand. I mean, it really does drive what the retailer does, which then drives what the distributor does, and that's how it's supposed to work. So great show, guys. It's my jam with all the law and the history involved in this. Brian was sipping corn. Look forward to the next one, guys. Thanks.
And Blake, the one who figured out a way to loophole the system. I'm very proud of you, man.
It's not a loophole, still legal. No, Blake from Sealbox. Thanks for having me and joining in on this therapy session that we had tonight of us venting a little bit. But no, I think it's an important topic, and I think it's fun. Just kind of, highlight what we're doing on the roundtable, because we live a lot of this in our day to day, and I know it's not always out there and talked about. So it is fun to get on here and chat about it. And thank you to all the great distributors and great retailers who are pushing small brands and helping build those brands. So you're much appreciated, and thanks again for having me.
And Jordan.
This is Jordan from Breaking Bourbon. I want to echo what Fred said. I think this is one of the best live chats we had going on. Tons of great interactions. We clearly hit a great topic. And just want to thank everyone listening live for just, submitting those questions and just talking real time with each other. This is a really good conversation.
Very much so. Ryan, you're always really good at smoothing things over. If I said anything dumb, you got anything to help close us out on?
No, I think distributors are an important part of the equation. There's some that do it better than others, and that there's an opportunity here, like we've all talked about. There's a way for everybody to win, and the system's definitely broken, and it definitely just needs to be revisited and looked at, like, what's a win-win for everyone. And so let's reevaluate, let's regroup, because craft distilleries, the whole liquor industry is in, I don't want to say tumultuous time, but they're in a time where it's difficult for everyone involved. And like, let's get together, let's regroup, and let's figure out a way to make a win-win for all parties involved. And so that's all we're trying to do. We're not bitching that distributors suck, retailers suck, but there just has to be a change where we can make it a win-win for everyone involved.
Here.
Yeah.
And
Cheers, gentlemen. Men with the beards. That's what we do.
Beard's the way to go.
Well, thank you again, everybody that tuned in. To echo Jordan, thank you, everybody that tuned in live. Put the chat box on fire tonight. Really appreciate y'all doing that. And I will put out a list for questions for the next roundtable, so anybody can go and submit anything in an anonymous Q&A, or you can put your name out there, and we'll see what happens, and we'll talk about it as the next roundtable. But if you do like the show, you want to support the show, everything that we do, you can also support us on Patreon at for little as $5 per month. But if you love the show, you just like, damn, this was a lot of great information, the best thing you can do is share it with a friend. Sharing is caring. Talk about the podcast, send it to a friend, and say you're going to learn a lot by listening to Bourbon Pursuit. Subscribe and follow wherever you can. But with that, cheers, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Vodka sucks.
All right.
Bikey had a good point too. The non-beards have better art
On their back wall.
Holy shit. Wow.
I just
look at that.
noticed that. It's
Yeah.
justification versus
Wow. We have
beards.
bottles and shit, and you got art.
I mean, it's been thrown down now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Got
like
a
it.
broken lamp behind me, so
It's funny.
By the way, Kenny, you got to move more, because I feel like you're frozen all the time and you don't blink. And I'm like,
What happened to that?
Don't
You had
blink.
one time a camera that got you from different angles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little annoying to move it in different angles, so I just keep it
All right.
on camera
Fair
2
enough.
over here.
and you'll be there with a smile and you're not moving with the beard. I'm like, what the fuck is up with Kenny?
I'll just
Picture.
do this every once in a while. Maybe sort of like pull my whiskers out just a little bit.
There
like
you
that.
go.
There we
oh
go.
gosh, please
You better
don't.
watch it, man. You're going to be on one of the Super Beta prostate commercials soon with
No.
Joe Theismann.
Oh, that sounds like fun, actually. Who knows?
It's about urination, though, Kenny. It's not about the other kind of prostate that you like.
Oh. I mean, there's nothing more
man.
relaxing than like a midnight pee when you have to get up in the middle of the night, though. So
That's true. Yeah.
you know, it's just part of life now. All right,
Ooh,
I am
I'll
gonna
fall
go
asleep.
and
Okay.
yeah, I was gonna say I'm gonna kill the live stream. Thank you, everybody
No,
that
it's still
joined
going.
in.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
okay.
Appreciate it,
Well,
everybody.
you know what it's like, unfiltered after Pursuit here.
Mhm.
But thank you, everybody, and we will see you soon. Later.
Prostate pursuit.